Hi, I'm Timothy Batten, your host for Welcome Home Doggy, where we talk about creating a better life for all dogs. Joining us today is Malena De Martini, a separation anxiety specialist focusing on dogs. So stick around, we'll be right back. Malena, hi. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm great, Tim. Even better that I'm here with you.
Oh, you stop it, you. Oh, you give me anxiety.
I know someone that can help with that.
Okay. So, we are so blessed to have you here today to talk about something that probably a lot of people don't know very much about at all, if anything. So why don't we just jump right in? Tell us what exactly is separation anxiety and what does that look like so that people know how to identify that?
So important. And you're right. Separation anxiety has been a little bit of a red-headed stepchild for quite a while. And not everybody, yeah. And everybody is, that's a redhead is spot on spectacular. But I realize that not everybody knows what it is and why it's occurring. And I think the most important thing that people understand is that not all dogs, but many dogs, maybe even upwards of somewhere between 22 and 55% of dogs do suffer from some sort of separation related issues.
That's a lot.
And what it is a lot, actually, if we just took 50%, that would be equivalent to 38 million dogs, pet dogs in the US alone. Okay. So it's a big, big issue. Now, these dogs, as irrational as it sounds to us, are petrified, panicked, and terrified of being left alone at home. And there's a number of reasons that contribute to why this occurs, although it's still a bit ambiguous as to exactly why any particular dog will experience this behavior problem. But what we typically see and what your average dog guardian will see is vocalization when left alone, some destruction potentially, or some elimination, by which I mean, peeing and pooping in the house, but only when alone.
So are those the typical symptoms that people are going to see? Or is there anything that's outlandish that goes beyond those typical three things? Because I've seen that in pets and different things, but sometimes you hear about people saying, oh, he specifically eats my things when he leaves.
Yeah.
So what are some other things they can think about? Like, oh, well, she didn't say that, but I mean, what is this? How does this manifest for us?
Right. So in essence, any type of behavior that indicates that the dog is experiencing some sort of distress. So let's think about things like pacing, drooling, panting, urinating,
Okay.
Defecating, etc. Those all fall into that realm. Now, when it comes to destructive behaviors, I want people to understand that some dogs may be experiencing separation related issues and others may be bored out of their tears. And so they're like, I think this shoe looks yummy, right? And it is true that a lot of dogs will destroy or chew on items that are heavily scented by their owner. So if I had 5 cents for every remote control that a dog ate, I might be on my way to the Bahamas right now.
Yeah. Sure. Now, one of the things that I find very interesting, I read recently, is that the pandemic has caused a big disruption for pets, both because you didn't used to be here and now you're here so much, but now people are starting to go back to work. So have you seen an uptick in separation anxiety or anxiety related issues with pets caused by the pandemic? Because like I said, like a lot of the pets, their routine was disrupted, and we are root animals of routine. So I know pets are as well. You know, if you're used to seeing your owner gone Monday 9 to 5 through Friday 9 to 5, like all of a sudden, like this person is home every day. What? And now people are disappearing back to work. So what have you seen as far as your work with separation anxiety and due to the pandemic, and what can people do to kind of prepare for this another big shift?
Yeah. So it's been very interesting as the world is starting to open back up. We have been inundated with requests. And part of that is the dogs that used to be very comfortable staying home alone for, however many hours a day while the pet parent went to work. But part of this is there has been 50% of US households have acquired a puppy or an adult dog within the last year and change. So we have a tremendous number of new dogs in the environment, and many of them have not been left alone or have rarely been left alone over the course of a year. And so those dogs have really no experience with alone time. So I worry and potentially expect that we're going to see fairly epidemic proportions of alone time behavior problems, but not all of them are going to be separation anxiety. Some of them are just going to be dogs that are like, wait, what just happened? You were home for a year and now you're going back to work. I'm like disrupted by this, right? For those dogs, it'll be a relatively simple process to reacclimate them to alone time. However, for those dogs that have either never been left alone or that have some sort of propensity towards separation anxiety, it will be a bigger shift. And the preparation that needs to go into that is gradual introductions of alone time. And when I say gradual, like I do not mean let's leave them alone for a half an hour a day. I literally mean let's determine how long the dog can be left alone without experiencing distress and only leave them for less time than that. And for some dogs, that's like 5 seconds.
So you're going to step out for 5 seconds and come back and go, hey, I'm still here. It's okay. I will be coming back.
That's right.
Sure. Now, as far as doing that incrementally, I know everybody, I'm sure the question you get all the time is, how long is this going to take? So what can you kind of speak to as far as that to help people understand, like, we're talking like a week? Are we talking like years? Like, where are we on that spectrum? Because everyone wants the magic wand. We're a magic wand society. Where's the magic pill? So what kind of things can people expect as far as that incremental, and what are some of the things they want to avoid to prolong that?
Okay. So you're absolutely right. This is the most common question that I get. Well, how long is it going to take until I can leave my dog alone? Because indeed, we are a instant results society. We want that magic pill. And I always want to remind people that, we are on, I used to say, we're on digital speed, but gosh, that's archaic. Like we're on 5G or whatever we're on right now, right?
Right.
That's right. But dogs are on biological speed. Okay. And so we can't expect those very, very quick results. Now, it'll be different. If a dog is just never been acclimated to alone time, but they don't have separation anxiety, that should go more quickly. If, however, a dog does have separation anxiety, I try to tell people to think in terms of months, not weeks. I cannot put an appropriate timeline on it because every single dog is such a unique individual. Like your dog is unique to all others. And I remind people that, if you were experiencing, let's say, depression and anxiety, and you went to a psychologist and said, I've got enough for 4 sessions. Can you have me fixed, doc? Like it just doesn't work that way. And we need to have that patience for the biological speed that dogs are moving at, right? But in saying all that, and certainly don't want to scare people away from the fact that it may take, a while, This is a very fixable issue. And I think people really need to hear that. So it is temporary, whether it's a month or 2 or 3 or 5, this is a temporary amount of time and training to devote to the dog, who you will hopefully have for another 15 or more years, right?
So what are some of the things that our viewers should avoid if they're trying to resolve a separation anxiety? Because, I know, like when I was growing up, I grew up very old school. It was like, well, if the dog doesn't do what you say, it's just a bad dog, and you've got to correct that the way that you have to. So, what are some of the things we want to avoid to actually shorten this process instead of prolong it, or to punish the dog for something it can't control?
That's right. And I love that you used the phrase, it can't control,
Right.
because these dogs are panicked. They're not sitting around saying, let me eat that chew or this door frame so I can get, back at my mom, right? They don't have that cognitive ability. That is not in their mental wheelhouse, right? To be able to incorporate things like spite or anything like that. So when people often come home and they see that the dog has chewed something or has peed or pooped or whatever, or that there's a note from the neighbor that the dog has been barking for a long time, they often immediately respond with anger, which is understandable, but we don't want people to use that anger directed towards the dog. If we punish an animal for their anxiety, we will exacerbate the problem. And furthermore, I want people to understand, not only is this not the dog's fault, it is not the pet parent's fault. Like, they did not cause this. And so there's no reason for anger or punishment. There's just the need to step back and implement a proper training protocol. And to add to that, because I think it's so important, if we reach out, if your average dog parent reaches out to 10 trainers to help with the problem, many of them will not really know the right answer. And oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes people will say, use a shock collar or use some sort of punishment methodology. And quite frankly, that is a recipe for disaster with these dogs. Can you imagine going through a panic attack and then someone shocks you? I mean, that just doesn't work. So that's off the table. Yeah, no, off the table.
Okay, so we don't want to punish them. We don't want to negatively reinforce this behavior. So what about, say, like leaving a pet in a crate, or does that alleviate it, or leaving them a feeding toy, or those some of the things, and kind of help at least distract them? Are those, let's say, a Band-Aid or something for the moment to kind of help this situation heal until you can get this, behavior alleviated?
Right. So let's start with crates first. As we already alluded to, every dog is an individual. Some dogs absolutely love their crates. And I will sort of make this, disclaimer. I think having a dog trained to be able to be in a crate comfortably in various situations is really important. Your dog is going to have to go to a vet and be in a crate. Your dog's going to have to maybe be transported somewhere and be in a crate. And so having them be in a crate for other purposes is very important. Unfortunately, dogs that suffer from separation anxiety have a very high comorbidity with crate confinement anxiety. And so we're actually going to make the problem more difficult if we try to confine them in a crate. And the number one question that I get as a response of saying that is, well, yeah, but he's destroying the door frame. Like, he's got to be in a crate, right? Here's the great news. If we take our time and introduce the dog to a few seconds, and then 10 seconds, and then a minute, and then 20, and then an hour, and so on, while always keeping the dog underneath their panic points, they will not be destroying the home. right? And so a crate for many dogs will not be necessary. And I think it's important for people to know and to assess and make sure that, does the dog do better outside of the crate or within the crate? I mean, you can certainly test, you can watch on Zoom, you can do all sorts of things to make that determination, right?
Now, one of the things you spoke about was assessing. Now, when you start working with a new client, is how do you start to come up with a plan to coach them on? Because I believe most of your stuff is done online, especially now. So do you set up cameras and then you watch videos and kind of ascertain, like, I think this is your appropriate course of how much time you should start with, and teach them how to do that as well? Is that basically how you start your program?
It is. We've been exclusively online for about 12 years now. So pre-pandemic, we were doing
Way
all of
pre-pandemic.
this.
Like,
Yeah, we've been doing all of this online. And actually for separation, it is way more efficient and effective to do it online, because if I come to your house and I'm like, okay, now let's leave. Well, that lady that came here with those, hot dog treats is leaving. And like it's a very setup than when mom and dad just leave, right? And so it's really important to assess the dog in their natural, normal situational environment. And so, yeah, we set up cameras. I mean, typically we use things like Zoom or Skype or FaceTime and, things like that. But some people have standalone cameras at home, and those can be great too. And we watch the dog for a specified amount of time. When I say specified, I mean based on the dog. Some dogs that may be 3 minutes, some dogs that may be 20 minutes, some dogs that may be 3 seconds, right? So, it's very individualistic to the dog. And from that point, we determine how to proceed. And we counsel our clients. I mean, the way our packages work, we counsel our clients 5 days a week. We take the guesswork out of it, and we literally say, here's what you're going to do on Monday. And then you're going to send me some notes as to how your dog did. And on Tuesday, I'm going to have a new set of exercises for you. So we do it all.
okay.
But there are options for people to kind of DIY it and determine what their dog's panic point is, and to walk through their own protocol. Obviously, everybody has different needs and desires. I know if I didn't have a personal trainer at the gym, I would probably walk on the treadmill for like 15 minutes and say, I'm out. But instead, I go to my personal trainer and he kicks my butt, right? So it's that same sort of thing. Ability, and someone else is creating an efficient and effective protocol for you.
So for the people that don't have the ability to say, do that 5 days a week with you, do you have an option for them, like an online class, some kind of course, something that they can do that they have accessible to through your website?
We absolutely do. We have a course called Mission Possible, not Mission Impossible. Mission
Possible, PAW.
No, we made it the real possible. I should have PAW'd it now.
Marketing credit. I get marketing credit for that. I need you to
No,
know.
when I change the name, I'm going to send you some affiliate fee or something.
Steven's actually buying the copyright for me right now off to the side. Thanks, production.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So we have a course. When dog guardians sign up for it, they have lifetime access.
Okay.
It's a very, very over 35 modules, videos, plans, etc. And on top of that, I go into that course personally every single day and answer people's questions, comments, and view pictures and all that good stuff. So it's for $99, it's actually a lot. It's a lot.
Okay, wonderful. So it's not just a, here's your book, good luck. You're still part of the program, accessible for them to talk to when they kind of hit a stumbling block and aren't quite sure what to do.
Absolutely.
That is wonderful. I think that's great. So what about, like, say someone wants to get another dog? Like, well, maybe if I get another dog, it'll have some kind of, I've had friends that have tried that. It ended disastrously.
I know.
So instead of one dog destroying the house and the backyard, now they had two that literally chewed trees off at the ground and just ripped the backyard to pieces. So what have you seen in your experience? Is that something that does alleviate, or again, we're back to the every dog is unique and individual, and whatever we kind of come across, we're not quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, sure, we always have to start with every unique individual. However, from both the research and my personal, bringing in a second dog it very rarely alleviates the anxiety of the first dog.
Okay.
And there is the possibility of separation anxiety contagion, right? So the first dog starts to howl and bark and pace and whine and do all those things. And the second dog, maybe for the first few days, is looking at that dog like, I don't know what you're so worried about. But after a while, that dog may very well start to join in on the fun. And absolutely so much more difficult to have two dogs with a similar issue like this.
That's exactly what my friends ran into, because I am not kidding when I say chewed trees off at the ground because they
Wow.
were just so anxious and tore the lattice work out from under the porch. I mean,
Oh,
full scale destruction. And they ended
wow.
up just kind of giving up. They reached a point where they didn't want to keep putting time into it, which was unfortunate. They did love the dogs, and no one wants to have to surrender a pet, or most people, I hope, don't. So
Absolutely. And I want people to know, based on what you just said, like, it is frustrating. It is overwhelming. There is a sense of like, where and what do I do? This is such an extreme problem, and that's how it feels. But I just want people to know that if they take the correct and follow a proper, gradual, and systematic, this can be resolved because nobody or very few people want to relinquish their animal. They love them.
sure. So as far as addressing this problem and dealing with this issue, what is one thing you could leave our viewers with, as far as, like, if you had a golden nugget, what would that golden nugget be to tell them? One, of course, yes, there is hope and it's treatable, but what is the one thing that you could tell somebody that, I'm sure you get this look all the time, like, I don't know what to do, help. Like, what could you truly tell somebody like that to help them really alleviate their anxiety and, excuse me, try and move forward with a plan? What is the one thing, if you had one big golden nugget?
Oh, you're making me choose one. That's so
Well,
hard.
I'll tell you what, give me your top three. I'll give
Okay.
you three because we like you.
You're so kind to me, Tim. All right. The very first thing, and I've already said this to an extent, but I want people to realize that their dog is not giving them a hard time. Their dog is having a hard time. Okay.
That's a beautiful way to state that.
And I think it's so important because when you realize the dog is having a hard time, you can have empathy and compassion for that animal. If you think the dog is giving you a hard time, you're just angry about it, right? So they're very, very different sides of the coin. And I think it's so important that we have empathy for these animals. They're actually suffering. It is truly a welfare issue when they are distressed during alone time. So that's the first thing. Find that place in your heart, in your soul, to have empathy for your animal because it's very, very difficult for them.
Of course.
The second thing is whether you look into an online course like mine or whether you want to work with a professional one-on-one, this is a problem that just throwing spaghetti at the wall is going to waste time, money, and emotional input. It is hard. And I know that human beings in general have a limited bandwidth when it comes to emotions, when it comes to time, and when it comes to finances. So if you spin your wheels for a month or two, you're going to be exhausted and financially depleted, and then you want to hire a trainer and you're going to say, I need this fixed in a week. And that's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Nothing magical. It can be
No,
fixed, but it's not magical. Okay.
it's not magical. I mean, science in and of itself is pretty magical, but it's not fast.
Not
Okay.
fast.
And then the last thing is I want to get the word out that today, literally this very moment, whatever time it is, what you're seeing this video is the time and the moment and the day to start to prepare your dog for alone time. Please do not wait until you're like, well, I go back to work on Monday, I hope he's going to be fine. Like, that is very, very big risk to take. And we want to give our dogs that metaphorical soft place to land, so that if we start weeks or more before we return to work and other life activities, we can gradually, sort of tell them through training that 5 minutes, you see, that was no big deal. Oh, 15 minutes, you see, that was no big deal. And then before you know it, they're like 2 or 3 hours, no big deal, right? And we want to give them that acclimation period, because trying to go backwards after they've had several days of panicking for a full several hours is actually much more difficult than preparation is.
I think that's wonderful advice, and definitely the things that we ought to be thinking about as we move forward. Malena, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Looks like that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Please join us next week for another episode where you can learn how to create a better quality of life for all dogs. For more information on today's episode and our guest, Marlena De Martini, please visit our website, follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Welcome Home Doggy.